Well. Happy Sunday morning. Your season is over video, of course, will be out later today. But you know the news. Jimbo Fisher has been or is going to be fired, depending on when you watch this video, as head coach of Texas A&M's football program. This was kind of a move that's been years in the making, really. It never really clicked or worked for Jimbo at Texas A&M. You know, he comes over from Florida State, having won a national title in 2013 and 2014. He made the first ever college football playoff as head coach of Florida State, and made the move to Texas A&M. They gave him one of the worst contracts in the history of college football. I mean, it was great for Jimbo, but it was the the 10-year, 96, 97 million dollar, whatever it was. Basically 10 years, $10 million a year, when he didn't deserve it. And it's just been a disaster. There's just really no other way to describe it. It's fun to make fun of Texas A&M for a lot of different reasons. The whole cadet deal and the fake ROTC and yell practice and wooden guns and crew cuts and uniforms 2 sizes too small and male cheerleaders and blah blah blah. But when it comes to just purely a football perspective, there's really no excuse for that level of performance at Texas A&M. There's just not. They've got everything you would want. If you're a football coach and you made like a wish list of everything you would need or want at a university to set you up to succeed, Texas A&M's got all that. They've got the money, they've got the facilities, they've got the fan support, they've got administration support, they've got a good athletic department. Like I said, the facilities are top of the line. They've literally got it all. They're in a state that's a hotbed in recruiting. They're a national brand, as much as some of us kind of like to clown on Texas A&M and the whole, hashtag 1939 hadn't won a natty since then. They're a national brand. I mean, people in California know who Texas A&M is. People on the East Coast know who Texas A&M. I mean, they're a national brand. They've not been great in a long, long time. I mean, a long, decades. Not that they haven't had a great season here or there. Hell, they had a great season in the COVID season. In 2020, they were 9-1. But Jimbo's been there, 10 years, 8, 9 years, whatever it is. 0 double-digit win seasons. And outside of that COVID year, 9-1, which, look, Alabama fans can cry till the cows come home. Nobody gives a fuck about that COVID season. They just don't. It's just a wasted, forgettable season. It is what it is. But outside of that season, never really even came close to meeting expectations in a given season. I mean, it got to the point where Texas A&M, people stopped calling it Texas A&M, and they started calling it Texas 8-4. And that was before the wheels fell off. I mean, now you'd love to be able to get back to 8-4. But 8-4 was like their ceiling, and they kept 8-4, 8-4, 8-4. Last year, 5-win season after having to, one of the best recruiting classes in the history of recruiting. It just hasn't worked. I mean, we can go over all the losses he's had and the disappointing home losses and losses to Group of Five. Never winning the SEC West. We can go over all that, but everybody knows all. But we've been talking about how bad Jimbo has been at Texas A&M for 4 or 5 years, and so there's not really much point in going over all that. The point is, he was fired. They're going to scrounge that money together. They've mustered up all the cadets and handed them each a shovel and given them their marching orders. Go out in the desert and start digging. Buddy, dig that money up y'all keep talking about. It's about $75 million he's owed. 75, 70, somewhere in that range. I tried to find the numbers today. I saw the numbers. This is weird, actually. I don't even remember where I saw this, but it was only a couple of days ago. Maybe it was on Twitter or anyway, with the specifics of his buyout. Yeah, he's owed $76 million. The way that is to be paid is basically like 30% or something like, don't quote me on somebody will let us know in the comments, but it's something, he's owed a lump sum now, and the remainder of the contract is payable over what would have been the length of his contract. So in other words, what has he got? 7 years left on his contract? Something like that. They've got to pay him 30% of what they owe him. So basically, I think it's 30% of the $75 million. So about $25 million. They've got to pay him up front, and then the remaining $50 million or whatever it is, they can spread out over the next 5 or 6 years in yearly payments. That's how that's going to work. But Jimbo out at Texas A&M apparently beating Mississippi State 128-2 or whatever it was yesterday wasn't enough to save his job. I guess this decision was actually made at a board of regents. Is that what they call it at Texas A&M? It's called something different at different schools, but basically the big wigs in charge held a meeting last week at Texas A&M, and I guess it was decided at that point that we've reached the end of the Jimbo Fisher rope here at Texas A&M, and the news has leaked out this morning, Sunday morning, that they are going to go ahead and fire him. They're promoting, what's his name? Sorry, I didn't write this name. Elijah Robinson. He's an associate head coach right now. He's expected to be promoted to interim head coach for the remainder of the season. So the two obvious questions, right? Where's Jimbo going to go? And who's getting the Texas A&M job? Well, as far as where Jimbo is going to go, wherever Ed Orgeron is, I mean, come on. You're fixing to give the guy a $25 million check. Here's $25 million. And then every year for the next 5 or 6 years, you're giving him another 7 or 8 million, whatever it is, until you pay off. So where, I don't know, where is he? An island somewhere in the Bahamas? I mean, I don't know where he's going. I don't know. His version of football doesn't exist anymore. I wouldn't hire Jimbo as a head coach if I was in charge at any level in college football right now. His philosophy is outdated. His scheme. He's an offensive coordinator that became a head coach. He's an offensive coordinator whose offense was at the top of the college football world a decade ago. Too much has changed. Hey, I wouldn't hire him anywhere as a head coach. But I don't know where he's going to go. But the more important question, who is going to replace him? Now, look, anytime a coach is struggling or there starts to be rumors or fan bases talking about wanting to fire their coach, you always get people who go, well, if we fire him, who are they going to get that's better? I don't know. And you don't know. When you hire a coach, there is no guarantee. None. You could take Nick Saban off of Alabama or Kirby Smart off of Georgia or just name whatever elite level coach off of whatever team they're on right now. Dump them down at any other team, and it's no guarantee that they will have the same or similar success there. Now, you can increase the likelihood of success, right, by getting a proven great coach, putting him in the right spot, the right time with the right, giving him the right resources in terms of being able to hire the staff that he wants, and like you can increase your odds of being successful, but there is no guarantee. There is no guarantee. Look, when Jimbo was hired from Florida State, that was considered a home run hire. Let's be real. Let's not act like everybody on the face of the earth was saying, oh, this is a terrible hire when it was made. They weren't. They weren't. I mean, everybody wants to go back in time and pretend like they knew this from the very beginning. They didn't. They didn't. There was a lot of people who thought this was a home run, surefire, winning hire for Texas A&M, and it didn't pan out. So the point is, there are no guarantees. So I've always been of the mindset that if you decide you're no longer happy with your head coach, or you want your head coach fired, or you want your program in a different direction, whatever, then you need to fire your coach. The whole who are we going to get deal, or well, we can't fire him until we're sure we can get somebody better. You don't know if who you're going to get is better. You don't. Like I said, there could be a secret under-the-table agreement already drawn up for Texas A&M to get, Kirby Smart as head coach, Dan Lanning from Oregon as defensive coordinator, and Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss as offensive coordinator to all move to College Station tomorrow. There's no guarantee they would start winning 11, 12, 13, 14 games a year there. There are no guarantees. So, whether you're a Texas A&M fan or now the administration, and you make up your mind, okay, that's it, I've seen enough of Jimbo, he's not going to take us where we want to go, then at that point, he needs to be fired, and that's happened. Then you start worrying about, well, who are we going to get? Now, look, I've got no idea who they're going to get. Neither do you. And let's be real, the last couple of hires by Texas A&M have been kind of out of the blue. Who was it before Jimbo Fisher? Kevin Sumlin? I mean, nobody saw that coming when he was hired. The Jimbo Fisher thing was also kind of out of the blue. So none of us really know. And I mean, I made a list here, but it's going to be probably the same list of names that you have in your head, right? These are just high-level coaches in some cases, or what so anyway, I don't know. But Dan Lanning at Oregon, I don't know how eager or willing Dan Lanning would be to leave Oregon, number one, but I think it's worth calling him. He's probably the hottest young coach in the country right now. I don't even think he's 40 years old, is he? He's young. He can recruit. He obviously has tons of SEC ties, having worked up under Kirby for several years and was at Alabama before that as a position coach or analyst, whatever it was. Then defensive coordinator under Kirby for several years. I mean, I'd call him. He's a hell of a recruiter. You see what he's doing at Oregon, and before you say, well, Oregon ain't won nothing. They've won more than Texas A&M. Who would ask? Let me ask you this: Dan Lanning's been at Oregon. This is only his second year there. Jimbo Fisher's been at Texas A&M for 7 or 8 years. He's got all his own players there, multiple top 5 recruiting classes on that roster, right? Dan Lanning's been at Oregon for a year and a half. Who would you pick right now if Oregon and Texas A&M were going to play? You'd pick Oregon. So I don't know. I'd call Dan Lanning. Recruiting to me is so much. I don't think there's anything more important. I don't think there's any single thing that is more important than recruiting, the ability to recruit high-end talent coast to coast. I don't think there is a more important quality that a college coach can have than that. And Dan Lanning's got that. Coast to coast. Having spent all that time in the Southeast, he's obviously got connections there. Now he's had a couple of years out on the West Coast. How many times do you think he's been to California high schools in the last 2 years? He's got recruiting connections coast to coast. He's young, energetic. I would call him. I'd call him. Don't know if you'll get him. Don't know if he wants to. I have no idea. Maybe he's holding out for the Alabama job. I don't know. I mean, that's a possibility at this point, but I'd call him. Mike Elko. Texas A&M fans know Mike Elko. Now, he's at Duke. Not a long track record. He's only been there a couple of years, but look what he's done in that 2 years. And again, ask yourself this. 2 questions. Who's got the better players? Duke or Texas A&M? Texas A&M. It's not even close. Who would you pick if they were playing tomorrow? You'd pick Duke. He appears to know what he's doing. And he's spent time at Texas A&M as a defensive coordinator. So he's got ties to Texas A&M. He's got ties to the SEC. He's got ties to the state of Texas. He's a proven winner as a head coach. I'd call him. Recruiting, I don't know. I'm going to admit, I don't know enough of Elko's background. Obviously at Duke, they're not going to recruit very well year in and year out. I don't know, like, when he was at Texas A&M or even previous places, if he is one of these coaches that's considered like a recruiting animal or whatever. I don't know. I have no idea. So I'll admit that there. Lane Kiffin? I don't know. You know, the trend right now is to go defensive. You look at, of course, Nick Saban and what he's done at Bama. You look at what Kirby Smart now is doing at Georgia. You look at the immediate success Dan Lanning is having at Oregon. There's a lot of people think Oregon's the best team in the country right now. I'm not here to tell you that's true. I'm just telling you that's the thought process. Lane Kiffin, what has he done? I don't know. You know how I feel about Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin's the most overhyped coach in the country. All the guy does is lose big games. He's never won anything, anywhere, ever, period. I would not even call Lane Kiffin, but I guess he's going to be on some team's list every offseason because he just is one of those names that just seems to always pop up. So I put him on the list, but I wouldn't call him. Kalen DeBoer. I don't know about Kalen DeBoer. And now he's done well at Washington. Again, a guy that's only been there a couple of years, right? Before he was at Washington, he was at, I forget the name of the, he was somewhere for 2 years. Fresno State, something like that. And then years ago, he coached at a really low level in college football. But anyway, you know what his record is as a head coach? It's like something like 111. That's it. Not 111 and 50. I mean, 100 wins, 11 losses in his career. That's a winner. He has won everywhere he's been. And he's won at 3 different levels of college football. The NAIA or whatever it is, some real low level, group of 5, and now at Washington. I'd call him. My questions about him would be, he is more of a West Coast guy. Fit is important, I think. Now, some people say, you heard this with Brian Kelly. Oh, I don't think he's a good fit there. There's going to be too much of a culture difference, right? You know what fixes all of that? Winning. If you're winning, you're a fit. So, but that being said, again, I don't know about Kalen DeBoer's recruiting. I'm just going to admit that to you. I don't know if he's considered an A-level recruiter. So I don't know about all that. And I'm not sure what sort of ties or connections he might have either to Texas, Midwest area, or Southeast for recruiting purposes. I don't know, but he's a hot name in the coaching world, Kalen DeBoer at Washington. I like Lance Leopold. Kind of a similar story to Kalen DeBoer, to be honest. Lance Leopold won a bunch of national titles in the FCS, right up at, North Dakota State or whatever it is, was winning all those national titles, and where he came from. Now he's at Kansas. And has Kansas won 10, 11 games or won a Big 12? No, but this is Kansas. Look where Kansas was at before Lance Leipold got there, and look where they're at now. Again, I don't know the ties that he may or may not have to Texas or the Southeast or the recruiting angle and all that kind of thing, but there's no denying the results on the field for a guy like Lance Leopold. He's won everywhere he's been so far. And then you have sort of the two fucking fantasy names. Deion Sanders, I don't see this happening at all. Can you imagine Deion Sanders showing up at College Station and telling a room full of millionaire and billionaire boosters to sit down and shut the fuck up? I'm bringing these cameras in here to post a bunch of Instagram stories and TikTok videos, and if you don't like it, get the fuck out. I don't see something like that working at Texas A&M. I'm sorry, I don't see that. Never mind the fact that Deion Sanders is not even a fucking coach. If Texas A&M hires Deion Sanders, you could write them off for the foreseeable future. I don't want to even, that's enough on. I can't even believe I'm hearing Deion Sanders' name mentioned for that job. Let's just move on. And then the last one on the list, Urban Meyer. I don't think Urban Meyer is coming back to the SEC. That's just my opinion. Nobody's told me that. I don't really have a reason to think that. That's just my personal thought process on Urban Meyer. I don't think he's coming back to the SEC. He did his little deal at Florida. It didn't end well. He got ran out of the league basically by Nick Saban. And look, he knew what he was leaving behind at Florida. He left a giant mess there. Went on to Ohio State, wins big there, but kind of left a mess there too when he left. And now he's been holed up in a studio booth for Fox for the last several years. I don't really know where somebody like Urban Meyer would land. The other thing about Urban Meyer is, it seems to be like if Urban Meyer does decide to get back into the college football coaching world, it's going to be in a spot that is, okay, you know how people like to joke on Ryan Day and say, oh, he was born on third base. In other words, he took over a job that was already primed to win immediately. I think that's the type of job Urban Meyer might be looking for. And I don't know that that's the case at Texas A&M. I know I talked in the beginning that they've got all the facilities and all the money and all the support, and they've even got a good roster. But it does seem to me anyway, and again, I could be wrong on this whole philosophy, but it seems to me whoever comes to Texas A&M, even if they are going to be successful, it's going to take a few years. I think there's maybe some cultural issues there that might need to be turned on their head. And it might take somebody like an Urban Meyer to do that. A younger coach, even a Dan Lanning, I don't know if he would have the clout to go into Texas A&M and sort of be the big swinging dick in the room. And that's nothing against Dan Lanning. It just seems like the people that are sort of the man behind the curtain deal, right? The people that really run shit at Texas A&M. I don't know if a younger, less experienced coach would be able to stand up to them like maybe an Urban Meyer would. I don't know. But anyway, I don't think he would go there. But those are the names I have. Dan Lanning, Mike Elko, Lane Kiffin, Urban Meyer, Deion Sanders, Kalen DeBoer, Lance Leopold. Okay, two more. But these are Jeff Traylor at UTSA. Now, you might laugh and say, who's at UTSA? We got to go out and get somebody with some experience. Do you? What was Kirby Smart's first head coaching job? Georgia. How'd that work out? Pretty good. How's Oregon doing with Dan Lanning? Guy never been a coach before. Not a head coach. Appears to be doing pretty good. I think the idea of experience might be a little overrated. What you need is a good football coach. And Jeff Traylor is that. He's 26-3 in conference play with back-to-back conference championships at UTSA. Maybe give him a call. And I will admit that I'm going to be on an island on this one, especially considering the year this team is having. And y'all feel free to clown me in the comments on this one. And this may be something where I end up getting, well, I've kind of already been proved wrong on this. I may continue to be proved wrong. I may just get wronger and wronger, or maybe I'll live long enough to be proven right about this guy. Dave Aranda. I was a big Dave Aranda guy. I thought Florida should have called Dave Aranda last time around when they hired Billy Napier. I thought Florida should have called Dave Aranda. He's, of course, the head coach at Baylor, and they can't win a fucking game. So I know it hasn't worked out there, and it could be that I was dead wrong about Dave Aranda. But when I sort of make a prediction or have, once I think a certain thing about a certain person, I'm like the people playing the violin on the Titanic. I'm like, nope, the ship ain't sinking. And I'm just, I'm playing the violin as the ship's going down. I really liked Dave Aranda, and I thought he was going to be really good. And he has so far crashed and burned at Baylor. But I'm not jumping off the boat yet. I'm still playing the violin right now for Dave Aranda. So maybe they call him. I don't know. Anyway, Jimbo Fisher fired. Your season is over. Video will be out later today per usual. Have a good morning.